Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hey, welcome back to this week's podcast. This episode is kind of going to be a short one. It's going to be a little bit of tough love. Something I want to talk to you about is how you stand in your own way, how maybe like your ego is in your own way. And it's not something that we talk about that much in the stepmom community. It's more about like, how do you deal with a high conflict situation? How do you get on the same page with your partner, like your stepkids, how do you navigate these relationships? But let's talk about the relationship with you. Namely, let's talk about the relationship with you and your emotions. I see this a lot, and this is something that I definitely struggled with too in my early years as a stepmom, and it's about your lack of ability to control your emotions. And what I see happening is stepmoms let their ego drive the bus. So if you're multitasking already, come back to me. Let's talk about what happens when you let your ego drive the bus in your stepfamily life. Honestly, this doesn't even have to be stepfamily life. This can just be real life because it pertains to real life too. How many times do you find it hard to admit that you're wrong? How many times do you find it hard to say, I'm sorry? How many times do you find it hard to extend an olive branch when somebody has done something to wrong you? How many times do you just clam up, shut up and just not try to do anything to fix anything? Or how many times do you expect people to grovel at your feet and just come to you and be like, Alicia, I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done all of those things. How many times do you expect that? Because here's what's happening when you do those things. When it's hard for you to say, I'm sorry. When it's hard for you to say, I was wrong. When it's hard for you to say, you know what, I'm having a hard time. Let me just go ahead and step back. You're driving a wedge between you and your relationship and with whoever it is that you're talking to. So let's say that it's with your partner and you were wrong and you can't go back and just say, hey, you know what, I'm really sorry that I lashed out. I'm really sorry that I said this. I didn't have all of the information and I was wrong. Is it really hard for you to do that? Because if so, hey girl, I'm Alicia. It's so nice to meet you. I really struggled with that too. I was very much my way or the highway. It's very black and white. You will do as I say. As my husband would say, I expected complete surrender 100%. He was just saying I'm sorry isn't enough. I basically had to be oh my gosh, you're the greatest thing ever. Maybe not quite that dramatic, but he's you expected complete surrender. And that's insane. He's right. That is completely insane. Absolutely insane. But what I've come to realize is that when stepmoms do this, it's because there's some sort of need that hasn't been met of their own. Maybe they don't feel loved. Maybe they don't feel wanted. Maybe they feel shut out. Maybe they feel like the outsider. Maybe they're looking for that validation of you still want me, right? You still think that I belong here. You're not just going to abandon me. There's all of these things, right? And that comes from your own childhood issues, creeping up, popping up. And when you let your ego drive the bus, like I said, it drives that wedge between you and your partner. And here's how we can get around it. Here's how we can work through it, not necessarily get around it, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to keep driving this wedge. We don't want to keep learning this lesson. We don't want to keep doing all of these things. We actually want to stop this thing from happening and this thing from sabotaging our relationship. Really what it is self-sabotage, because you're the one that keeps doing it, even though your partner is hey, please stop doing this. It's not helping our situation. And you're I'm trying, but I can't. So if you're in this situation and you know that it's happening, kudos to you. You know that it's happening. The first step to solving a problem is admitting that there's a problem. So okay, I know that I'm a hothead. I know that I just say whatever it is that I want to say. regardless of whether or not it's a good thing or not. And I know that that's not good because it is driving this wedge between my partner and I, my husband and I, my stepkids and I. It is driving this wedge. I know that. So I need to do something about that, right? So I need to say, okay, Alicia, what I'm going to do is I know that this stressor, whatever it is going to keep coming back. And you know that it's going to keep coming back because everything in a step family life is cyclical. Anything as a stepmom is cyclical. Like those situations are going to keep coming back until you learn the lesson that you need to learn. So if you are multitasking, come back to me. These stressors, these situations are going to keep coming back to you until you learn the lesson that you need to learn from them. And that's wonderful because then you can work on yourself and you can say, okay, these last minute schedule changes send me over the edge and make me irate. They make me whatever it is. Okay, well, you know that they're going to keep happening. So here's what I can do. The next time that a last minute schedule change pops up, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on changing these things. I've actually got a free resource on this called Mastering the Stressors. If you go to AliciaCrossco/free, all of my free resources are on there. You can get any of them, but look for Mastering the Stressors. Like that one is going to help you slow down what you're thinking and try to like work through navigating. So you figure out like what my stressor is, what my reaction is, why that doesn't work. And you have to be honest with yourself. Why doesn't it work? Does it drive the wedge? Does it make your partner crazy too? Like, is it making them insane that you like keep peppering them with all of these things? And then what is our new response? But if you are struggling, so that's an easy thing, right? Like it's easy, so to speak. Like if you are letting your ego drive the bus and you cannot admit that you are wrong, I'm going to tell you something right now. You're not perfect. So you can drop the perfectionism. You can drop the holier than thou thing. You can drop the do as I say, not as I do. You can drop all of that. I don't know if you can hear those thunderstorms. That's what that noise was. But the sooner you can drop the perfect stepmom thing, the easier your role is going to be because then it doesn't matter if you make a mistake. It doesn't matter if you say the wrong thing. It doesn't matter if you fumble over your words like I have a few times in this podcast interview or podcast recording. There we go, another fumble. It doesn't matter. And you can just realize that you're human and it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes, you included. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible person. It doesn't mean that you are the worst person in the world. It doesn't mean that you are unlovable. It means that you're human. You make mistakes. So the sooner you can drop the facade of, I have to be perfect 24/7, your life gets that much easier. You can laugh at yourself. You can kind of poke fun at yourself and be like, oh my gosh, do you remember when I thought that I had to be like this perfect person? And maybe your partner's going to be like, yeah, and it was really annoying or it was really frustrating because it probably was. It used to drive my husband mad. But letting go of that ego is really hard. And here's why. It's kept you safe. Your ego has kept you safe. Your brain is wired to keep you safe. Oh, we can't do that because if we do that, maybe if we make a mistake, people are going to make fun of us. If we make a mistake, people are going to laugh at us or they're going to think like, oh my gosh, she doesn't have it all together. Or if we, don't have the best whatever, people are going to have assumptions. If we don't insert whatever, people are going to think whatever it is. Who cares? Other people's opinions of you is none of your business. One of my good friends says that. And she's like, I have to remind myself of this on the regular. Other people's opinions of you is none of your business. And honestly, who cares what that other person thinks? Because guess what? They also make mistakes. They also might not have the best of whatever. And it's not a competition. It's not a competition with you. It's not a competition with the other house. It's not a competition with your friends, your partner. It's not a competition. But your brain is wired to keep you safe. So you have to be strong in yourself to say, I am safe. I am okay. If I make mistakes, that's okay. Because also your stepkids or your kid or kids, if you have your own, they're watching you. And so if they never see you make a mistake and they never see how you handle that, they're also not set up for that. I'm not saying like go out and make mistakes just for the sake of like teaching them a lesson. No, but it's okay for you to show frustration. It's okay for you. This is what I say to my daughter. It's okay for you to be mad. It's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to be upset. It's okay for you to be angry. It is not okay for you. And she goes, yell, throw things, hit people, punch them, kick them. What else, Mom? I'm like, bite them, bite them. So she knows, like, these emotions are okay. Totally fine. But we can't act on those emotions when something happens or when something goes sideways, and we can't put our partner against us, because that's what we're doing when we act out like this. If something happens and you just flip out, now all of a sudden it goes from like the two of you versus the problem, it goes to you versus the problem and them. Like you just put them on the opposite end of your spectrum. So if you are struggling with your ego driving the bus, and there's a lot of times that I coach that moms are like, my ego, Alicia, is not driving the bus. It is. If you can just say, it's not driving, and it's all about the tonality and like how they say it, right? Like, my ego is totally not driving the bus. I'm like, I've been coaching you. Like, I know that it is. And I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to give you honest advice. Like, it is. I can see it because I did it too. So if you're struggling with your ego driving the bus and you know that this is an issue, just take a few seconds to be like, okay, what is it that I need? And I've talked about this before. My husband used to call me a prickly pear. This is so embarrassing to admit, but he used to call me a prickly pear because when I am angry, I am not a nice person. When I am really mad, I am not a nice person at all. My tone is very sharp. That's what he says. Like, your tone is very sharp. You go for the juggler, which is like, that's definitely me. I go for things that I know are effective, which is not a good thing. And I'm like, I understand that, but I'm struggling, and I didn't have the words to say that I was struggling, or I don't have the words to tell you that I'm struggling. But what I need is a hug or some reassurance, or a hug would really be helpful, right? Like, I just want to know that you love me and like you're here and I'm safe. And he's like, are you out of your mind? Do you think that I'm going to hug you when you're like throwing daggers or spears, like one after the other? Like, I can't even get in. And if I do get in, you're like a prickly pear. You're like sweet on the inside, but like you have these thorns all over you. Are you out of your mind? Do you think I want to hug you? And I was like, okay. Just try it. Just try it one time. Like, come and just hug me and see what happens. And shockingly, like, he didn't die. But it took me a long time to just be able to like have the courage or to feel safe enough to say, I understand that when I am like rage screaming at you, it's because I'm feeling unloved or unseen, or I just want some validation. And what I really need from you is a hug. I just want to feel loved. And then once I did, and I could communicate that in a normal tonality like this, he was like, oh, okay, I hope this works, because if not, I'm going to get my head ripped off. But it did work. But it's just like, I had to learn that my way isn't always the right way, which is really hard to learn if you're a very black and white, very type A, very my way or the highway kind of person. My way is not always right. My way is also not always the best way. Not everything has to be black and white. There is a gray area, especially if there are kids involved, and you've got to learn to operate in the gray area. Or you can die trying, like your choice, or you can die trying. So if your ego is driving the bus, please get a handle on it. We have been talking about it inside the community. Lately in the community, actually, we've been talking about hygiene. We've been talking about dreams about the ex. We've been talking about pregnancy and like how to like tell the ex that you are pregnant, like what's going to happen with that. We've been talking about alcohol and maybe using alcohol to cope. Super exciting update on the community is we have an app now. So we have an app, so you don't have to sign into an actual website to do it. You can just sign in on the app. Like, it's so much easier, even for me. Like, it's been available for weeks, but I wanted to make sure that I like had a good handle on it before I like released it to the community members. But yeah, if you're struggling and you want a community that will help you through all of this as a stepmom, it's hard enough to navigate on your own and then factor in that you're a stepmom. And it's like, please, has someone seen me? Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Come join us. It's just aliciakrasco.com/community. We'd love to have you on the inside. And for the sake of your relationship, but more importantly, for the sake of your mental health, please get a handle on your ego. I'll see you next week. Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crosco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.